What's going on, Alpha Futures? How are we doing today? So I'm here with another one of our qualified traders. He has done a couple payouts with us. I'll let him introduce himself in a minute, but he's over in the UK. I'm here in California. I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me today. But go ahead, introduce yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And we'll get into all that trading talk. But first of all, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from?
Let's do it. So, my name is Mo, and I'm based in the UK right now. I'm actually from Jordan. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Jordan,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm from the Middle East. And yeah, I've been in the UK since 2017. I came to uni over here, and now I'm working, and I've been trading for about, say, I haven't been trading for a long time, to be honest. Like, I've been trading since maybe the beginning of this year or a couple of months into this year. And that's when I started like really taking it seriously, to be honest.
Nice. So, beginning of this year, what was your introduction to trading? Like, what got you interested in it to start with?
Yeah, no, so it's a interesting topic. So I had family who's into trading, and they've been into it for a couple of years now, and I've always heard of it. And it's always like something interesting. And I've actually like dabbled into it a couple of years ago as well. Well, I wasn't successful, but I wasn't really taking it seriously. I actually have like a funny story once because I didn't know what's it called, um, you know, um, the prop firm existed or anything at that point. It was like 2017, 2018 time. So I was just like signing up to like different brokers, and I wasn't doing anything sensibly. As you can imagine, I would just put in like a few £100 somewhere, and like I remember I was only like trading news, which is against every prop firm rule, right? So I would just put, I would I would like go all in before like NFP or something like that. And like I
Yeah.
remember one time I went in like all in into this broker who's not even regulated in the UK or anything. I think they're like regulated in like Australia or something. And I put in like literally all in, and I went from like plus £500 to me owing them like thousand or something like that.
Oh,
So
geez.
that was not the best start at all, right? If you can imagine. And
Yeah.
then
So you
yeah, like
learned about margin that day, right? Like learned what
yeah,
margin was.
clearly, clearly. And yeah, that was pretty much it. And then like I left it for a few years, and then I had some family that talked to me about like prop firms, stuff like that. I was like look at the charts and briefly had some interest in like crypto. I never invested in crypto, but there was like a big, what was it called, like hype around crypto around like 2020
Yeah.
times, like COVID times, because everything was going up. Everyone was like making their own money. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And just started like looking at charts, and then yeah, just looked at other charts, and then I left it up until this year when I got introduced to like prop firms, right? And I didn't know about future prop firms. I actually didn't know about futures before alpha futures, to be honest. I was like a CFD trader, and I began with that. I began with like those big companies like FTMO and that
Yep.
stuff. Not that successful, as you can imagine, because I'm just starting. I'm like, okay, I actually need to put in the work. You know what I mean? And I just started like watching like a lot of like videos online and like backtesting the market and seeing how the market moves, and yeah, slowly starting to get the hang of things essentially. But yeah, that's the story so far.
Cool. Cool. So you mentioned, right, CFDs, props were kind of your introduction to prop firms. You mentioned FTMO and Alpha Cap. Are those the like only two you really dabbled in, or were you kind of everywhere in the industry? It seems like most traders I talk to, and I myself, like I was kind of everywhere in the industry at one point. Obviously, Alpha Cap is kind of where I found my long-term home, and that's how I ended up at Alpha Futures, was my relationship with them there. Um, were you bouncing around everywhere, or you found pretty much two that work, right? FTMO and Alpha Cap, like two of the more reliable
So,
firms out there. Were you solid on those, or were you bouncing around everywhere?
so I would say like I'm more of, like I wasn't bouncing around everywhere just because like I didn't know much about the space, but I was still
Yeah.
cautious because like a lot of firms are not that legitimate
Yep.
as we saw what happened in the space in the last like year or so. A lot of firms have gone down. So I was really cautious about that, and like I would only trade firms that are like big enough, or I've heard good things about them from my friends or my family. Like they had confirmed payouts, essentially, or like yeah, and that's so. I only dabbled in the beginning with FTMO, and then I moved to Alpha Capital, and that's
Nice.
where I found my home, like you.
Cool. Yeah, that's the only reason I was asking that question was because like that's the experience I want to hear people have. That's not the experience most people had though, right? They did try a bunch of different firms. I mean, I was funded at two firms that went under over the last couple years and stuff. Like, just didn't know if you got caught in that too, which I'm glad to hear that you haven't been caught in that, which is good. But are you still trading CFDs at all, or are you just trading futures now?
So yeah, so my introduction to like futures, right? So I was like an alpha capital trader. I had a qualified account with them. Also made a couple of payouts with them. But yeah, so I remember like the day when they were like promoting alpha futures, like it was opening up and stuff like that. And they posted that link under a Discord chat, right? And I was like, you know what? Let me try this alpha future thing. You know what I mean? I trust alpha capital. Let me try alpha futures. Why not? It was like late at night. I remember. I was like, I don't know what to do. Let me just try it out. And I tried it out, and I was like, oh, that's nice. So at that point, I was also trading like CFDs with alpha capital and alpha futures at the same time. And then I slowly just shifted away to fully being futures trader and just stopped CFDs. I just liked it way more, to be honest.
Nice.
I tried. I had some people who tried to convince me to go back to CFD, and I was like, I don't think it's for me. Even though I was like, I left CFDs on a successful note. It's not like it was a bad note or anything. I just preferred futures for some reason.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like CFDs, I'm grateful for the introduction and everything it gave me to the prop firm space. But I'm the same way. I only trade futures now. I won't leave. And I think so many forex and CFD traders are scared to make the transition just because it's unknown. I'm sure you can speak to
100%.
it. I don't think the futures learning curve is any different from a CFD learning curve, right? Like think about when you first picked up CFD prop firms. You took, like you said, a couple months of research and understanding what was going on, and then you're on your way. Futures does not add some like extra complicated step there. It's just a little bit of homework, and then you can get started and be on your way. And then
100%.
obviously reap the benefits from there that you're seeing right now. For me in my head, how I usually tell people it's, hey, it's better data, which leads to better execution, and you have better platforms as well. As much as the CFD space loves MetaTrader and stuff, like it obviously ran into issues in the US anyways, just from a accessibility point. But even right, even like design and aesthetics of the platform, there's so many better options in futures that people just refuse to come check out just because they got used to CFDs. So I'm definitely the
Yeah,
same way. We're in the same boat there.
I agree. And it's like, and like as you said, like there's not much. Like I feel like it's the same kind of like analysis that you would do in
Yeah.
CFDs. Like it kind of applies to futures as well. The only thing with futures that confused me in the beginning, which you actually had, which you actually like have like a video on that on like YouTube, right? Just like
Mhm.
understanding the like terminology of futures and like what does like a tick mean, just like
Yep.
those sort of stuff, which was confusing to me because it's like all about like pips and CFDs, and I just didn't really like understand what's it called, like understand that. But yeah,
Yep.
so just a little bit of homework. Watch your YouTube video that you did. It's really helpful. It actually can
Mm.
add a lot of knowledge to some people. So yeah,
Glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear it was helpful. And I mean, we're adding more and more to our website every single day just to try to make that transition easier for people because you're living proof that you're like, hey, really, it wasn't that bad. It was do some homework. And then, exact, I like that you said there, your same analysis, your same trading style, everything you're doing that's working over at CFDs will work at futures. And what we keep hearing more and more of is it's actually working better at futures. And the main reason for that, like I said, my opinion is going to be better execution, better data, better platforms. If you're a profitable CFD trader, there's a really, 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 really good chance you're going to be a profitable futures trader too. I don't want to slap a guarantee on that because, of
of
course,
course.
people run into it, but there is a really, really good chance you're going to succeed at futures as well. And like I said, we're hearing more and more people actually prefer it. I feel the same way, but it is nice to hear that's not just my personal opinion anymore. It is a lot of our, a lot of our
Yeah.
alpha cap and alpha futures traders. They love both, but they're like, futures is kind of pulling me that way more and more. Which, like I said, I couldn't agree more. But it is nice to hear other people feel that way too.
Like a lot cleaner to be honest. Futures, I feel like the chart itself just a lot cleaner how it moves,
Yep.
and like yeah, just yeah, it's like everything about like the chart how it moves and like fundamentals of it, just like everything is like is nice about it. It's so much cleaner. It's like it's like centralized exchange as well, because if you look at CFDs, like one um company could have like a different price than like another broker and stuff like that. So it gets really confusing sometimes.
And I think a lot of that comes from a lack of understanding of what a CFD actually is, right? I actually talked about this in one of my last interviews. Like people don't realize it is a made up contract. That's what it is. And it's unregulated because of that it's between a brokerage and some sort of buyer, right? That wants NASDAQ at a certain price with a certain amount of leverage. Broker is going to write whatever the customer wants and actually gets sold. That's why these brokerages, you all see different prices and whatnot, because there's no actual ownership of an asset that it's following. Like, yes, this is based on NASDAQ 100, or it's based on the S&P 500, or it's based on dollar versus the yen. Sure, you don't have any ownership in that asset though. And that's why everything seems so kind of erratic in CFDs, is because there's no central asset that you are actually purchasing a stake in, a share in, etc. And while futures contracts are, yes, a contract, you still technically have ownership of the underlying asset you're trading. That's why it seems so much more clear, is because it has to be attached to a real centralized asset. That's where you kind of see a lot of people are like, I don't know, the price action is just better, is because it's actually attached to a real ownership asset. Well, CFDs are not. They're strictly just contracts. And that's why, people obviously say they're like, oh, our brokerages are just making up fills and whatnot. They technically, that's what you signing that contract of get me whatever price you can get me. That is technically what you were agreeing to every time you trade CFDs. And I think that's just like a lack of understanding that CFD traders don't have. And they're like, the brokerages are out to get me or whatever. It's like, no, that's actually what you're signing up for as a CFD trader. Is I would like to be involved on this underlying asset at whatever price the brokerage wants to get me in at. That's what CFDs are. And I think it's just such a major lack of understanding of what people are actually trading. And that's even for me, futures and Forex. I kind of laughed about this. We did an event in London and all the Forex traders felt like futures was the Wild West. And I was like, CFDs is literally a designed, it's a designed Wild West that the brokerage can get you in at whatever price they want to. And you as a trader are checking that box by agreeing to trade them.
Yes, please.
Futures, you can't do that. And that's why I was like, it's so funny, the US versus like the rest of the world, that futures are the Wild West Forex traders. Well, it literally could not be more the opposite, that futures are the real assets attached to a centralized exchange. And CFDs are like, yes, there are some very reputable brokerages out there that you will get fair fills at, of course. But it is technically what you're signing up for, is to go trade in the Wild West.
No, 100%, 100%. And it's also, as you said in the beginning, like it's part of doing your homework, right?
Yep.
Like that's essentially all it is. But like, yeah, I mean, I do agree. Like, I didn't fully know that about CFD, I'll be honest. And from what you're saying, it is the Wild West, like on steroids. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's, I mean, it took me years to figure that out too, until I started to look into more. I was like, what is a CFD? Like, what is it? And it's just another. It almost sounds like options contracts when you talk it out. It's like an agreement between the brokerage and the trader to get them leverage to an asset at a price. That's the difference. It's not like when you're buying CFDs on a mass volume, the way Forex, is. It's a massive market, biggest in the world. You're not going to be able to specify the price you want consistently. And that's why CFD, we see so much slippage and whatnot, is just because of the volume they're being moved at. It's impossible to get everyone the exact price they want at that exact time, and that's why even you'll see like limit orders in CFDs. A limit order will still get slippage. It's because they're doing their best to get you the price that you want at it. But again, the fact that it's not attached to a centralized asset, you just have to take our word for it that we did our best to get you the price you want. And again, people attack the brokerages for that. The traders agreeing to it every time they trade CFDs. And for me, I felt like that immediately put me at a disadvantage as a trader. That's what got me into futures and why I've never left them. So yeah, little lesson there on CFDs for everybody 100%. Didn't know. That is what you're agreeing to. And that's what I mean. I feel like it's a lack of understanding. So hopefully some other Forex traders will kind of wake up and be like, oh, there is this same same type of trading I'm doing, there's a better option for me, and it is futures. It is for sure.
I completely agree with that. Hand on
Cool.
heart.
All right, let's get back to you. How would you, if you were to describe, first of all, what assets you're trading, and then if you were to describe your strategy in like one or two sentences, because you've obviously had some pretty good success with us. I believe you're what, like close to 6,000 in payouts with us. Am I thinking of that right?
Slightly more.
Slightly more.
I
Nice.
don't have I don't have the exact number, but yeah, I think slightly more than that.
I would say I was
Um,
in my head. I actually had like 7,600 is what I had in USD. I think it is right around
I
there.
think that's
Yeah,
around
so a little bit over seven
right.
thousand dollars you've done with us. But yeah, tell us about your strategy and how. I'm sure you went through some
Yeah,
struggles, so feel free to share those too. But what led
a
you to
lot.
the success now? Yeah, as every trader does.
Of course. Yeah, so what I trade, I used to trade a lot of stuff, right? But just what I learned just to focus on one thing, and now I'm just focusing on NQ. That's what I do, and I'm sure a lot of people trade NQ. But yeah, so my strategy in a sentence is like it's all about like market structure for me, and like so like I would use like market structure imbalances is an important thing for me as well. Gaps as well is important, like the new weekly opening gap or like a daily gap or yeah, so those stuff are important for me. But yeah, it seems like market structure. Um, I don't use fundamentals that much, but I keep an eye on them. I read what's happening around the world because I feel like it is very important. That's what's interesting about trading, right? It's like something that is like interconnected to like everything. So like you're interconnected to like bank, the financial systems, human psychology, the market. Just like yeah, that's what's really like interesting about it. And like so, I do keep an eye on that. What I do, I do look for. I start looking at the higher time frames, see what they're doing, and essentially from like a market structure point of view. And I go to the lower time frames, like 5 minutes to 1 minute for my entries, and I try and snipe some good trades sometimes. But yeah, so a lot of the struggles that I went through is like not following the plan to a T. And that's where people, because like I don't understand, because like I don't fully, I myself don't believe psychology is a big part of trading, right? I just believe that you didn't follow the plan essentially in that trade. Because if you backtested and it worked and you made some money, um, it should happen again, you know what I mean? But like, yeah, so not following your plan could be like interconnected to like psychology in a sense. Like I do agree with that. But yeah, essentially if you are woven, just follow your strategy to a T. And I know we all do make mistakes sometimes. I know even the more experienced traders would sometimes go off their plan, which is understandable. But yeah, that's essentially like my strategy and like my struggles and the
Cool.
shorter like sentences.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and I'll actually have you share your screen here in a minute and just walk us through kind of like some example trades if you don't mind. I agree, though. I'm sure you've seen on our Alpha Futures page and stuff. That's kind of been my stance in psychology too. Is bad trading psychology comes from a lack of strategy or a bad strategy altogether, right? And I'm of the opinion trading is an art because I think trading as a science
Agreed.
completely is when it should be automated. Like that's why algorithms and stuff exist. I was even just talking about this with some traders in the community today. I was like, the big names you've heard on Wall Street, there's a reason why they're like big names, like somebody like Michael Burry, for example, right? Because they are a human and they recognize an opportunity and they cashed in huge on that opportunity. Most of them aren't well known for just like running a science algorithm all day, every day. That's almost the point of like companies, right? Like that again, run algorithms, hedge funds, and whatnot. That's almost like the company pitch is that, but we're not massive companies that can move markets with algorithms or right like that kind of volume. So I do think the psychology side is pretty much just recognize I'm looking for opportunities. That's all I try to tell myself psychology wise as a trader is like I'm an opportunist. That's the only thing my mind needs to do is look for opportunities and find them. From there, it's playing your strategy. And if you have a lack of strategy, yeah, of course, your emotional control. Of course, you're not really going to have any idea what you're doing. That all comes from lack of strategy, though, in my head, not necessarily like you need to change your mental state. Your psychology needs work. I think it pretty much comes back to strategy. Strategy needs work. If there's no strategy, yeah, of course you're going to be nervous because you're not actually performing anything. You're just clicking a button, which is very nerve wracking.
100%. Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I just feel like with experience, you do kind of like learn this stuff. And I'm not the person to say because I don't have that much experience, but I do see myself improving with time a bit. I'm not where I want to be yet.
Yep.
But like I am seeing some improvements, which is all that matters to me. Is just small but continuous improvement, essentially.
Yeah, that's all you can ask for, right? Like you said, improve over time, no matter how much time that takes. As long as you're falling forward, right? Just fall forward over and over again.
100%.
I love
I
it. Yeah,
completely
well,
agree
if
with
you
that.
can screen share here and kind of walk us through again. We just talked a lot about how you and I are so heavy on strategy. Let's take a look. Walk us through that.
Let's do it. What those lines are, what I started doing is I go to the daily time frame.
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually not my, what's it called? Like, how do you say, that's not my like high time frame bias because I'm more of like an intraday kind of person. So I just see like what's it doing, and like those lines are like essentially like the highs and lows of like certain days that it was. Because from what I saw before, is like price sometimes do have a reaction from them, not all the time. You can just run through them like nothing before, like as you can see here. But sometimes it has a reaction, so it's just kind of nice to see like where you are, especially like if you're in a trade, you don't want it to go the opposite way or anything like that. So just nice to have them. My higher time frame is actually the hour. That's what I
Cool.
use, and like, that's like where I look like for. That's where I look for like what the market is doing. Um, yeah, for example, like I try to zoom out as much as possible because one thing that I did that wasn't really good for me was like I was too zoomed in sometimes, especially in the lower time frames, and that really doesn't like tell you the whole story of things. You know what I mean? And that's where like, a lot of my losses used to come from. So like I would essentially like look at the higher time frame, as you can see, we're like, in an uptrend, like market structure is going up. But I was like, yeah, and then I would kind of like try and zoom in a bit and see like what price is doing. Like just as an example here, like price like couldn't break this point, which is like one of the daily like time frames. Like it couldn't break this point. It tried to push, and then just pushed back up, and then I'll try to go to the 5 minutes for like certain like entries that I would find. And essentially there's a lot of like market structure involved. There's a lot of like swings. Like I utilize swings a lot because I feel like price would like revisit like certain swings and like
Mm-hmm.
certain points in the swing and then like change directions or like continue in a direction. And I'm just trying to see like a good example like of a trade that like I would take just like briefly. I would just try like get the bigger picture of like certain things, and then like when I go to the lower time frames, so the higher time frames I use for market structure, and then the lower time frames are more like order flow for me, like what's
Okay.
exactly happening like in the market, like zoomed in, and like that's where I try to take like my sniper entries. I hate saying this word, but um yeah. So let me just try and look for like a good one. The price is like ranging a lot, and I don't really like trading like ranges. Um,
Yeah. Like weekly doji prints are like the worst thing for me, which is all we got in what was it, October, like four out of the 5 weeks around October. I
yeah,
struggled a lot there. That's what I personally struggle with is range bound markets, which when you look at them, it feels like it should be the easiest because it's just right. It buys support, sell resistance. But like for
exactly.
me, my style, like trend days are when I make my money, or trend days personally. So like
Mhm.
I'm waiting for that trend
100%.
breakout. You know what I mean? I'm waiting for that breakout one way or the other. I end up just
Mhm.
getting stopped out trying to play the breakout over and over again on those range markets. So I typically try to avoid them altogether personally.
100%. And yeah, so that's like what I found here. So for example, like here I saw like price flip like to the upside, and like one of the things that I talk about like some points is that I know like price is gonna come back to like a certain area of this, and then like take a move up, right? So
Yep.
like I was kind of like in the simplest terms, essentially, I would like kind of like draw a box around it, and like there's like certain points that I really care about, where the fibs also also like draw a fib, and
Okay,
just like a
fib
simple
swing.
one, a
Cool.
0, 30%, like 50%, and stuff like that. I do tend to, so like when my price like reaches to between like 50 to 70%, that's when I like to take my trades.
Okay.
And
So
so
that's what you'll be using as low as even the 1 minute or 5 minute mostly.
so it's like 5 minutes mostly, but I do sometimes look at the 1 minute, and
Okay.
then like I just don't, but I don't enter into any like trade that just goes in the like between the 50 and 70%. I kind of like look at price here is like slowly it was coming down, and then it was slowly like flipping, right? So kind of like
Hmm.
broke structure here, kind of wait for the retest again, and that's when I take my
Okay.
trade.
Cool.
And yeah, essentially, that's when I try to take my trade, and then yeah, sometimes my like risk to reward is just like sometimes like 1 to 2, around that. I do like to trade sometimes, 1 to 1s. I'm not really against 1 to 1 sometimes, but I just need to. But like to trade 1 to 1s, I have to be confident, right?
Yeah.
I have to be like, oh, like I've been having a few winning days. Now I can, because I feel like you have 1 to 1 and your win rate is not the highest, then it can eat into your balance or profit. But
Yep.
yeah, that's essentially it, to be honest. Yeah, just watching structure from the higher time frames, watching certain swing points where I see price would return to, having a confirmation of like, yeah, breaking structure, kind of retest kind of thing, and just like taking a trade to like, and like, I'll target mostly like either imbalances sometimes. I target like halfway through an imbalance sometimes,
Cool.
or like across like different time frames, or yeah, or like a point where people say there's like liquidity in, you know what I mean, like highs and lows essentially of like certain
Yep.
places. And yeah, that's essentially a summary of it.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, we definitely have some similarities there. Like my personal favorite time frame is the 1 hour for the same reason you're saying. Looking for highs and lows on the 1 hour is pretty much how I would you if you were to look at like my screen time, 90% of it is on the 1 hour for me when I'm watching charts and
That's
stuff.
crazy.
That's definitely my personal favorite time frame, no doubt. And then I don't go below the 5 personally, just because of what we were talking about, right? Like that's what I was wondering about. Like, oh, do you enter on the 1 minute? I did for years, and I just found I struggled with it more and more. It pretty much used
That's
to
fair
be
enough.
like pretty much just trying to teach people how to like get the fastest best entry. I think is an obsession in the trading space, and that's why people trade on the 1 minute. I just found my hit rate suffered too much trying to stay on it. So I love the 1 hour and the 5 minute time frames. Those are my two personal favorites. I'm not a fibs trader myself. That's why I was interested about asking you, how do you use the fibs? I'm pretty similar though for just looking for, again, market structure, but talk about like the break and retest. That typically what I'd be
Yeah.
looking for on the 5 minute is the entry on the retest on the 5. Or if I get the chance, right? If I'm able to catch some sort of liquidity grab on the 5 minute, that's the preferred entry. I
Yeah,
personally
fair enough.
I don't expect myself to catch that all the time though. I think that's way easier said than done. So that's typically when I wait for, you know what I mean? Like this morning, actually really good example on NASDAQ from this morning, right before New York open. We got a clear liquidity grab at the low. I don't trade before New York opens. I waited for a 5 minute, just higher low. I was in on the higher low and held longs. I'm out of longs already today. It looks like I left some money on the table because we continue to run, but you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm looking for is some
Yeah.
sort of 5 minute confirmation of the structure we saw on the
Mhm.
1 hour, which like you just even pointed out, we got that liquidity grab
Yeah.
this morning on the 1 hour, got my 5 minute entry that confirmed, okay, higher low, we're going to keep climbing. And yeah, we're kind of
Mhm.
continuing to push pretty strong right now. And yeah, I really like how you said you use imbalances for targets. Another good example today is NASDAQ, right? It's filling that imbalance from the
Yeah.
sell off from the 15th. That's how I like to use them too. I think Instagram is obsessed with fair value gaps. Like that's how they think trading
Same
works.
thing.
They're like
Same.
every single fair value gap has to be filled the second it's printed. I really struggled getting sucked into that vortex for like a couple years and stuff of like, oh, there's a fair value gap. Okay, I should get short back into it. and then it doesn't fill for 6 hours. And I just blew my prop account because I went into so much drawdown with it. I really struggle with that too, but I really like, again, why I love the 1 hour time frame. That's where I find those imbalances to be much more useful. And I only use them for targets. Like you were saying, like I was already, I was already in long today. So I'm looking to hold back into some of that imbalance. That's how I personally like to use them too, is strictly for targets, not the entire trading plan, or a reason to take entry and wait for it to be filled again. That's really what I think so many beginner traders get trapped in, is they love it on Instagram and Twitter, the ICT concepts and stuff. There's obviously some valuable stuff in there. Yeah, but it's just everywhere. It's everywhere. And especially when so many people are I shouldn't say they're all trading the same strategy, because obviously they're not all doing the same thing. But typically when we get an obsession of concepts like that, like that's what we see a lot of people struggling with it, is because they're just taking it as gospel and not actually adding anything to their own strategy with it. Which for me, like I said, we're kind of on the same page. Like I really like using it for targets, but when an imbalance or something is printed, I'm not just getting long and waiting for it to be filled. Like we talked about the one from the 15th. If I did that on the 17th, right? If I got long on the 17th to wait for that imbalance to be filled, I would have got liquidated this morning for sure on that move back down, And that's what I mean, that like trading is an art, because timing is there, right? Like you need the timing, because if it was a science, sure, that 1 hour imbalance has a pretty good probability of being filled eventually. That's the science side of it, is like the probability is pretty good. The art side of it is actually finding an entry and timing it well enough that you can be a part of it. And that's where I think a lot of like the ICT stuff, the fair value gaps, is like, it's viewed as like, this is science, so it has to be true, right? And like that's how they all take it. Trading's so much harder than that, man. You know what I mean? It takes years of building that experience to figure out how to time things, how to find opportunities and actually hit on them. Because I do think the science side of trading is just the opportunity exists. That's all that's true with the science trades. The opportunity exists. And if you have a certain hit rate and a certain risk reward, you will be profitable. That is all the science 100%. Side. All of that can be done by an algorithm, by a bot, by some EMAs. It's, again, when it becomes art, is actually the label trader. A human has to make those decisions over and over again. So yeah, like that's definitely how I've always felt about trading, is like, if it was a science, it would be way easier to just run an algorithm at all times, which, hey, if somebody can develop that, more power to them. But you definitely need some volume on those algos and stuff to actually, move price. And that's why we hear about hedge funds running so many algorithms day to day at this point. They are moving price. That's why. But again, the big names, the people that made names for themselves on Wall Street and stuff, they were still the artist. They were still the one taking a big opportunity, which obviously you're somebody too. That's what you saw in prop firms, was an opportunity, and you're taking advantage of it. So I love to see that.
And also, like, what I think a lot of people like do is like they complicate their trading style, and I feel like it leads to a lot of failures in that aspect. It's called like, just keep it simple, man. Like that's all you need. Like simplicity is art, you know what I mean? And that's where the art comes into place, and that really helps a lot of people, and all the profitable people that I know, right? Their strategy is just very simple. Like I was shocked, like, how does that even work? Like, it's that simple. It seems too easy. It's not, because there's a lot of hard work that went into it, backtesting, timing is important, stuff like that. But when you just hear it, it looks too easy. It looks too good to be true, essentially.
Which, again, I think the social media era has done this to them. They see, like you and I just went through something that worked in our strategy the last couple of days. They see that and think it hits 90% of the time. Not true. Like I personally operate with around like a 57% win rate, which, like, fine. Some months it's going to be lower. Some months it's going to be higher. I'm typically somewhere around mid 50s though. So like that tells you right there, it does not hit 90% of the time at all. It hits well enough that I'm able to be profitable. Like I've done very well prop firms over the years. But you know what I mean? It's like so many people see that on Instagram and they're like, there it is. I finally found the strategy that hits every single time. Doesn't exist. Does not exist. And that's also what I think social media has really done to people. They're chasing that shiny object that's going to hit every single time. It's just not the case. It's not realistic at all.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think like best solution as a trader is to go off social media and actually trade and like learn and just trade it and because like social media can really influence and just change what you know is right, if you know what I mean. Like you could be convinced like the strategy they have works or stuff
Yeah.
like that, and then someone else would say something else, you'd be like, oh, let me try that. And then and then like you have to start from ground zero again because you have to go back and see if it actually works for yourself, for your style. And yeah, so just prolongs your time to be profitable essentially. That's
Yeah.
what I think
Yeah.
of.
It's taking ownership of your own development. I think is true in anything in life. Trading exposes that to the max, though. You have to take
Yeah.
ownership of your own development. Don't expect somebody else to just come in and do it for you. Now, I do think, believe me, like I've met some great educators and stuff throughout my years. I've learned things from them that help me become a profitable trader faster. But again, it was always me taking ownership in my own development as a trader and just taking little things that they taught me to add to my strategy, not throw my strategy out the window and hope I could take on
Agree.
theirs. I saw something from them that I was like, oh, that's good. I'm going to remember that for next time. Like, for example, the ICT stuff, we just talked about how we both like using imbalances, but like my entire strategy does not revolve around fair value gaps or liquidity grabs. You know what I mean? Like my entire strategy does not revolve around that. But that stuff I learned from a very good educator in the space and
Or-
said, okay, how can I use that too? It's not just expecting him to take full ownership of my development. And that's where I think so many people go wrong.
No, I agree with that.
Cool. All right. Well, now tell me about your alpha experience. I know obviously you're here talking with me, so I know you've enjoyed it. But I mean, yeah, walk me through, how's it been? Why did you choose us? What led you here? All that stuff.
Yeah, let's do that. So started with Alpha Capital. I know it was like a trustworthy like firm and just from feedback from people that I know, and I'm like, okay, let me try it. And they were always like trustworthy with me, right? I've never had any problems with them. Like I'm just gonna continue if I have no problems. And yeah, and then like when they like advertised like Alpha Futures when it was like opening up still like a couple of months ago, I think during the summer. Um, yeah, I was like, oh, let me try it. And then just within that, I, like I would trade. The trading environments are excellent. Um, everything about Alpha Futures is great. Like the customer support are amazing. They're always available like 24 hours, and they would respond super quickly. Detailed response because like some firms would take a long time to respond to you with like a very like generic answer anyway. So you waited for all this time for something generic. You know what I mean? Like, what's the point? Yeah. So like, and like after Alpha Futures, I did try a few other what's it called like futures like firm just to see how it is.
Mm-hmm.
I signed up to one that I'm not going to name, but I signed up to one, and the first time I signed up to that firm, um, there couldn't place any trades because they had like an issue. Literally, the second I signed up to, I was like, okay, this is not gonna start. And then I was like, I should just tick off the futures. Like I should stick to what I know. And every time I try something else, I'm like, I should go back to what I know because yeah, I just feel like our futures is like the Apple of futures. That's fine because um we do cost a little bit more, but the services they provide, how clean everything is, um, very communicative. Like yeah, like everyone is super helpful. And yeah, I really do appreciate everything about Alpha Futures. I would definitely continue with Alpha Futures. Like after the bad experiences I've had, and like of me just trying different firms, I'm like I should just take with what I feel the most comfortable with. And yeah, Alpha Futures is where I feel the most comfortable.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I mean, that's obviously our approach in the customer support side of things is just truly comfort and like enjoying your experience. But from a product side, like you mentioned, look, when we set out and I started building the products, immediately said to ownership, I was like, I don't care to be the cheapest. I don't. Something that the space is missing is, first of all, we have the largest end of day style drawdown in the space. That was something for me that I was like, I want that to be our label number one. Best drawdown in the space, undoubtedly. And then no withdrawal caps. That's the thing that frustrated me. I was like, look, I'm not trying to run up a huge tab on these prop firms. That's not what I'm trying to do. But you know what I mean? Like some of these, you're only allowed to withdraw $1,200. There are
Yeah.
plenty of people that spend way more than that on challenges by the time they finally get to their first account. That's something that
Yeah.
didn't sit well with me either, was the fact that those withdrawal caps are so tight, people can never earn their risk back. And obviously the last one that I feel like it's only experienced traders in the space that really appreciate this, but every single one of them loves it. The fact that our maximum loss limit doesn't slide up with that first withdrawal. So again, just that idea, if somebody wants to make their $800 they spent on challenges with us, if they want to make that back, they can withdraw that without their max loss limit all of a sudden becoming zero. You know what I mean? You can make $800 on the account with us and withdraw it, and your maximum loss limit will be whatever it was before. So I mean, it does still trail off your end of day balance, right? But I thought that was something that just frustrated the hell out of me in the space. Was like,
I agree.
I made this $800, but I really can't withdraw it until I make 5,000 on the account. Which for me, yeah, like it got trapped in there, and you go back to zero, and then all that money you made just was never actually made. To me, it felt like that was a two-step eval, but everyone pitches it as a one-step eval, but you can't withdraw until you gain 5% on the account. That's a second evaluation. Like, no doubt that is a second evaluation, you know?
100%. And no, like I completely agree. And like, yeah, so one thing that I didn't talk about is like the rules, right? Like, yeah, that 4% like maximum loss limit is like a lifesaver for many. And I haven't seen, as you said, like any other firm with 4%. I've seen like, I think 3% is the common one, right?
That's the
I could
norm,
be
yeah.
wrong.
3%
Yeah,
is the norm.
yes, and yeah, that really helps a lot of people, to be honest, because yeah, and pretty decent. And like, yeah, like all the rules are pretty simple, you know. Like that's what I like. I feel like everything is like detailed out for you, so you're not really like no one is really like misleading you in any way. Like you have everything right there for you. You can ask any questions you want, get specific answers to them, and yeah, that's one thing that I really like. And one other thing that I like about like prop firms is just like choosing, is like looking at the people that want the prop firm. I think that's something that's really important, and because everyone can advertise, oh, this, that, but you just have to see like someone, like look at their interviews, see how someone is, see how, yeah, like that really helps to like shape your mind on like on that firm, because yeah, you just feel like, oh, like they're pretty nice people, they're kind, all that good stuff, like just feel like more comfortable like trading there. And that's one thing that really like stood out to me. That's why like I haven't like signed up to like many other firms, because I'm just not comfortable with the management group or the people that runs the firm. And that's something that's, yeah, on top of the list for me when choosing a firm to trade with.
Sure. Well, I'm really glad to hear that our efforts haven't gone unnoticed, because, like I said, that's obviously what we hope for and how we carry ourselves. So I appreciate you saying that a lot. So thank you. All right. We'll kind of wrap it up with a little bit of like motivational stuff, just like for the beginner traders. And I always end every interview with questions that other traders have asked and want me to ask, like you, for example. So you'll give me one too. So what people usually ask, though, and what we've stuck with is, what did you spend your first payout on? First payout ever?
Ooh, I don't really spend it on anything, to be honest. I just kept it. Maybe bought a few new accounts, but other than that, that's it. Like I haven't really like, yeah, gone
Put it
crazy
away.
with it.
That's good. Well, just, my answer is even more boring than that. I used it to pay off student loan debt. So I didn't even save it. I immediately started
But that's
using it.
pretty smart though. That's pretty
Yeah.
smart.
So that was mine. So your similar boat, saved it, and then used some of it to reinvest back into, I mean, right? We always say treat trading like a business. That's part of it. Taking some of it that you just made, reinvesting it back in to grow that capital. That's absolutely the way to go, in my opinion. Right? If you're spending your entire payout on challenges again, you're just kind of account rolling. You're just gambling them, right, over and over. It should be a piece of your payout goes back in to try to get max allocation if you're not there yet, or even investigate other firms. Tradeovate and NinjaTrader allow copy trading, that you can copy multiple firms. Nothing wrong with doing that if you have the funds to do so with those payouts. I honestly encourage it. That's how how people can really get ahead. So cool. Yeah, I had a pretty similar, somewhat boring answer there. People always want to hear about like, oh, I bought a car or something. Not me either. um, and then give me something. You can either go with like top 3 tips to a beginner trader, or one piece of advice that you wish you heard sooner, or maybe you did hear at one point that really helped you.
Yeah, don't overcomplicate things. And the other advice I would say is pick with one thing and really dive deep into it. Try research it. Try backtest that strategy. If like after a certain point you're not seeing success with it, then yeah, you can change it. Right? If it's not working, why keep it? But yeah, if it's working, just don't overcomplicate things and trust yourself. You have to trust yourself a lot in this field. And yeah, that's essentially what I'll say. Like, keep working. Like, it'll happen to anyone. You know what I mean? Like, if you just keep like putting in the work, it could happen for some people like quicker than the others, but it will happen if you stay like persistent, essentially. And that's with anything, to be honest, that you do in this world. If you stay like persistent in it, it will happen.
Absolutely. Awesome. And then what would be your 12-month goal from now? If we were to have an interview again 12 months from now, talking to Mo the trader again, what do you want to see Mo doing?
More payouts without futures.
Hey, there you go. I'm sure that will happen. There's no doubt in my mind that will happen.
That's yeah, and just keep improving as like as a trader and as a person. Essentially, that's the goal.
Love it. Love it. Cool. And then if there's something I didn't ask you today, obviously go ahead, tell me, or something you want me to ask the next trader on your
Okay,
behalf.
so what I want you to ask the next trader is, I'm not sure if someone asked you to ask that already, but what I'm gonna say is like, what is the one thing that they like about trading the most and why? That's
Cool.
it.
Sweet. Well, what's your answer first before I pass that on to others? What's your answer?
I kind of like mentioned it in the beginning when I talked about how interesting like trading is, because like you're playing in a market that is like bigger than you, if you know what I mean. With all the banks involved, the hedge funds involved, human psychology, like a lot of people trading in the market, and it's all in a little chart that goes up and down. It's really interested. It's really like, interesting to see how that is because it just makes your mind think, oh wow, like I'm actually doing something that's like bigger than me. Like you forget that sometimes, and it's like, oh wow, kind of cool.
Absolutely. That I mean, the entire world's involved at this point. I mean, we have traders from all over the world. You're in the UK, from Jordan. I'm in the US. I grew up in the US, and we're talking about similarities and strategies. I mean, I trade NQ too. It is. I mean, it pretty much covers the entire world at this point. You can find some connection with another trader, which I think too. That's why I love trading communities like signal services and stuff. Like we talked about, you can't expect it to take on your development, but you can get a lot out of just joining a community and connecting with other traders. Because again, it reconnects back how
Of course,
big this all is, and how you can be one of those small traders out there taking a piece of it and making a fantastic living by doing that. I think that's the true value of joining. Even if it is, call it a signals community, that's fine. If you are going to join those, if you're going to again expect this trader or traders to take full development of you, not the idea. If you're there to take full ownership of your development and connect with other good traders, you're going to love it. Like you're going to get addicted to trading communities. And I think you should. I think they're great for that. So absolutely, it's just that the reminder, you're so right. This is so much bigger than just a single one of us. And I mean, look how much the prop firm space has grown. That's come to show it too. There's plenty of options out there people can trade with. Um, yeah, we appreciate you choosing to trade with us so much. I'm glad you feel like you get the love back all the time, because that's exactly what we want, is make sure our customers understand, hey, we appreciate you a lot. We're extremely happy you're doing so well. That's the point of all of this, is to help change lives. So I'm really glad, Mo, you've been incredibly kind to everybody in the community. I'm really glad a guy
I
like
appreciate
you,
it.
really glad a guy like you has been benefiting so much from it, because that's what it's all about, man. So really great stuff. Anything you got for
Thank
the
you.
people you want to close up with?
Happy training. Yeah, good luck to all, and looking forward to see the next interview.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Mo, thanks so much for your time today. Anybody that watched, feel free to drop a comment below, questions for me or Mo, or anything you want to see in the next interview, let us know. But make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys in the next interview. Thanks so much for your time today, Mo. Appreciate it a ton, man.
Thank you, Ben.